Hello everybody and welcome to another tutorial on Arganian's puzzle box. In this video we will be looking at how to make a how to get a ship to fly in space at low speeds, high speeds, rotate, flip around and all sorts of things. And we're using the Millennium Falcon, the Black Edition, in order to show the proof of this concept. Now, I want you to understand that what I'm doing here is not necessarily the right approach to making a video game in which you can fly in space. This is just my interpretation. I've used multiple sources of inspiration from different kind of people who have content on YouTube in which each of them had a go at how to create a flying system. And I have basically put it together to work in my favor for my scenes. I think it's a wonderful way to present a project, to just fly around in a spaceship in whatever sort of environment I've created. And also you can fly jets this way, you can fly planes in this way. I think it's really really entertaining and really eye-opening when you really start to traverse your scene at very high speeds, or low speeds or whatever, and you also have gravity that pushes you down, or you can sort of float. It's really nice and really it's like a seamless sort of process once you get the hang of it. I really enjoy spinning around meteors and asteroids in space and whatnot. It's really cool. But very important to note here is that this project file, the project that I'm showing you the tutorial in, is available on my ArtStation or GameMode page, so you can get that if you want, and you can just literally play in there with this ship because it's already set up in there for you guys. And also the scene behind me as well, as you can see, this is my new sort of setup, my deck in which I'm filming. I'm still trying to work it to look better and also run better and also be more integrated with me within the environment. So I'm still working on that. But I am probably going to make this. I'm going to make this project file available on my Patreon, just so you guys can have a play around with it. So if you really like what you're seeing behind me, then very soon that will be available on my Patreon. So please subscribe to Patreon if you want to. But do consider buying some of my projects from ArtStation or Gumroad at the price of a coffee. So if you want to buy me a coffee, then please do so. It really supports me and the channel, which is really starting to take off. So let's begin the tutorial, and I hope you guys enjoy it. We are now in the scene in which we will be conducting the tutorial, and this is you will recognize this scene from one of the project files that I've made. I've made a neutron star inside of this project. So in my previous tutorial where you saw that being made, it was in this project, and this project is available on the marketplace if you want to get it. If I press play right now, you can now see that I've got the ship over into the scene, and we're going to go through what makes this sort of animation possible. As you can see, I don't really have any boosters at the back of the ship. I've not yet done that. That's for the future sort of development of the tutorial series. But you can see I'm flying the Falcon through the scene. This is the Millennium Falcon for definite. It's just textured this way because this was the only texture that would look good enough on this particular mesh, which I've taken off of Sketchfab, as I didn't want to go and model a Millennium Falcon myself. I just took this free asset from the Sketchfab place, where I'm going to link it in the description below so you can actually get it yourself. But as you can see, I've got in the left side of the image, I've got a torque slider. So I'm going to show you how you can set that up as well. It's not complicated at all, so it's very simple to do. But that progress bar fills up as I increase the speed, and if I just press W on the keyboard, the speed at which I will be maximizing my speed will be my velocity. I put it as torque, but obviously you can put it whatever you want. The text is meaningless. That is capped at 10, a power of 10. But then if I press Shift, this goes up to 200, which basically means a lot of speed. Okay. And this is very useful if you want to do something like intergalactic space travel or anything like that, because that speed can be anything that you want it to be. But we're going at really fast speeds anyway. I mean, this scene is quite big. I'm not really sure in terms of size, Unreal Engine size, how big it is, but just, it's really big. It's a really big scene. So I'm traveling incredibly fast, okay? Okay. But as I said, there's no limit, there's no cap to this. You can have the speed as fast as you possibly as you can. I guess if you go to very, very, very high speeds, you may see a big decrease in performance actually. So when you're speeding up, because the Unreal Engine will try to load all these assets through, and it really depends on how expansive and how full the space area is. Now, what I want to show you is what sort of comprises this particular setup that I've done. So we've got in the input tab, please have a look over here, although I'll be going through this again, but it's, we'll have to set this up the way you see it in here. But more importantly, in the maps and modes, I have created a new spaceship game mode. So opening the content browser, this is literally a game mode that I've made, so you can do that. I'll show you, because we're going to go through this and we're going to make it. But this is quite simple. You make a game mode, you select certain parameters in here, such as, the HUD that you want, what's the pawn class, if you have any spectator pawn or anything like that. So our Millennium Falcon ship is actually a pawn, not an actor. And that there's a difference there, definitely, because it also, if you make it as an actor, you need to use a slightly different blueprint nodes in order to get it running. If you're using a pawn, you have to use the pawn variant blueprints for that. And I've used the pawn because it's a static mesh that we're actually putting in here. We're not putting a skeletal mesh, although you can do it with a skeletal mesh as well. It's not really a problem. The workflow doesn't change much between the two, but with a skeletal mesh, you want to also load some animations. But this is purely for the static mesh, so it's a lot simpler to put together, and anybody can do it quite quickly. So we've got the game mode done. There's another thing that I've got in here, which I am just trying to find. So if you look in here, I've got the ship HUD. So if we open that, there's a widget. So the widget itself is this torque and progress bar that you're seeing in here. I'm going to show you how to set this up. It's quite easy. And then there's a ship HUD, which is it basically brings it. It sort of takes that widget, how it constructs the widget that we've made for the progress bar, and then there's nothing in the viewport that you can see, but in the event graph, this is where I'm loading that when we press play in the engine. And then there's also the actual Millennium Falcon pawn class. So if we have a look at this, I'll make it a bit bigger just so we can see. What we've got in here, we've got the spaceship that's being loaded, and that's the route for the spaceship. But you can see we've got the Millennium Falcon in there. If I double click this, it will obviously open the ship, which, by the way, as I said, doesn't look amazing from up close. Oh, it seems that I'm inside of it. So you can see I've got quite a few errors on the textures and so on, because I didn't unwrap this. I sort of did like a very rushed job of just unwrapping it automatically in Blender and whatnot, so we didn't do a very good job, but I think it's good enough for our intended purposes in this video. So we've got the mesh. We've got a spring arm which a camera is being attached to, so the camera follows behind of the ship, and it's on a spring arm, so we can have a bit of wobble and movement and lag. What we're doing in the blueprint itself, in the event graph, because there's nothing in the construction graph, it's just the event graph, we've got an area where we're setting up our thrust when we start playing. Then we've got an area where the thrust is being calculated either at very fast speeds, which is this one, or at normal speeds. Then we have velocity and rotation. This is where all of that is being sort of put together. And then we've got the control, so move up, move left or right, and roll. So all of these together make up the system in which you're able to fly the ship. So we're going to start now from the beginning, putting everything together. We're first going to create a game mode, then I'm going to move on to creating the blueprint for the ship, and then lastly quickly a widget with a HUD in which you can see your sort of speed of the ship, if you like. But I think that's very important that I do that, because then you're fully understanding, including what sort of measurement units you're using to be able to work out how fast you're moving. It's quite an interesting sort of concept to do it that way as well. But don't forget, you can buy these projects from my ArtStation page or Gumroad, so you can get all of them from there. And they're quite, I would say, I mean, they're very cheap. I think it's about $4 or something a project. So I think, it's just like buying me a coffee. If you want to buy me a coffee, that definitely helps a lot and supports me in making more of this content. So yeah, let's begin the tutorial. What I would first recommend that you do before you create a project is you switch it over to a blank. Now, you may want to put it as a third person or first person or whatever you may think. That's fine, but I normally start with a blank project. So I'm just going to build this within this project. It's not really a problem, but as I've said, I personally go for a blank project. Another thing that you want to do, if you're building planets and space scenes, it seems that in Unreal Engine 5, this is preview 2 by the way, but it works in Unreal Engine 4.27 as well, or 4.26 is not really a problem. But I've seen that in Unreal Engine 5, the large scale sort of scenes like this one have a problem. So what I mean by this is, if we go in the world settings, and if you can't see this over here, just go into your window and make sure you got world settings ticked. So if you go into world settings, there is an option in here where it says enable large worlds. If you don't have that ticked, this is what happens. The world becomes blank if you look in certain directions. I thought it was a glitch, but it's actually just this option in here. So enable large worlds, and then you're good to go. Okay, so that's just a bonus tip right there for you guys. And now what we want to do is we want to go in our project settings, which I am trying to pull out somehow. Okay, I've got it over here, and in the project settings, in the input option, which is under the engine section, so just make sure you click input like that. So you're seeing all the options. You're probably going to have in here, either you're going to have some action mappings or some axis mappings, depending on if you made a blank project or not. If you didn't, or whatever, doesn't matter what you have in there, you can delete all of that and just put them in this sort of scenario, in this sort of way. Now, I've called this supersonic. You could call that whatever you want, but that's my trigger to tell Unreal Engine that I want to go fast, or whatever you want to do. These are trigger maps that, actions that you can press. And this is the axis. This links to your mouse and to your keyboard. So your mouse will be, your view will be locked to your mouse. You won't see a cursor around the scene. You basically can turn around the ship on its axis using the mouse. And so you can see, you can look up and down with the mouse, and then you can roll left or right with the mouse, but you can also roll with a Q and E. And I've done that because it's actually easier to use these two keys to roll. And then W is first forward, S is backwards, or not backwards, it's more like stop. You can't go backwards, you've got to turn around. And then you've got move right and left. And then just make sure you put these numbers in here, a negative or a positive, otherwise it won't know whether it's a left or a right, or whether it's up or down, so that's important to do that. Okay, so once you set this up, then you go into your map modes, and whatever you may have in here, we need to create our game mode, a new game mode for this, because you're going to see a bunch of different things in here, but we want to make a new one. So what I'm going to do, let me just take my project settings away, and I am going to open a new where is it now, content browser. Okay, and let me just make a new folder here. I call it tutorial. So sorry, I've got this microphone in front of me, so it's a bit difficult to see. Anyway, right click, and then we can create a blueprint class. And over in here, we want to select game mode base. And then we can call this, I don't know, BP game ship. Doesn't matter, whatever you want to name it, but obviously you should know what you've named it to. Because then when we go into our project settings, which again I'm struggling to open, if I then press this button, you will see that this game ship now shows up in here. If we click it, this is now opened, well, this is now open the default pawn and so on, because that's how the blueprint is generated. So we need to change that to whatever our new settings are, which is fine because we're going to create all of those. Okay, now the next one, we want to create our ship blueprint, which in my case, as I've said to you, is a pawn. So that's important to remember. So now right click and select blueprint class again. This time we're going to press our pawn and then put BP underscore ship. Okay, very simple naming convention. I like to keep things simple. So we'll open our pawn over here, and this is our window. There's nothing inside of it. If you want to rename this, just click it down here and then press F2 or right click for rename, and I'm gonna call that ship root, and you can see it's now renamed it up here. Now if you have it selected, every time you press the add button, it will add something and then pair it or parent, or yeah, it'll become a child to the root and to whatever subsequently comes down. So in this particular case, we're going to add a new static mesh, and we're going to call that ship. We need to load the static mesh, so I'm just going to type in Falcon. That's my mesh over there, and you can see it's now been loaded. And I've got an important thing to say here as well. Let me just come out of the... So when you import a new mesh in Unreal Engine, maybe its rotation is not facing the right way. So in this particular case, the Millennium Falcon is luckily facing the right way, which is its front has to be facing, well, has to go in direction of where the y axis, sorry, the x axis is pointing out. I'm pretty sure that's the, yeah. So where the x axis is pointing out, you see x being 0. So you want your ship to go forward like that. So we need the x axis for this. So if it's not, what I would recommend is you go into a software like Blender, open the ship, rotate it so that it faces the angle that you want, and then bring it back in, re-import it, and that should be fine. And also scale it in there if you want to, so you know, to have the proper scale. Now once we have the ship, then we can have it selected, then press the add button and type in spring, which will bring us a spring arm, which I'll leave it with that name, that's fine. And the spring arm is pretty much centered to the ship, by the way. But you've got some options in here like target arm length. So if you put that maybe to 1500, maybe that's not going to be enough. Let me just try. Sorry, that's the camera at 1500. So I forgot to do what I was supposed to do. The spring arm is in the center. It's, as I said, it's centered to your ship, to your mesh. But what you need to do is you need to add a camera. And I'm going to add just a camera, and now the camera is parented, well, it's parented to the spring arm. And then when I select the spring arm, I can now move the camera backwards. So let me just do that. You can see it's now over here, but the spring arm, maybe I'm going to put it to 2000. And now the camera, for some reason, it's not moving. Let me just see. Probe size camera 12. Yeah, it is already connected. Interesting. Let me just try. Okay, there we go. 5000. Seems it was just not, I wasn't using the right sort of setting. So the spring arm is now at 5000, and maybe I'll lift it up on the Z axis like that, so it's at 1000. Okay. Now you can test this out if you want by dragging in the blueprint within the scene, and you can see with the blueprint selected, you can see it's showing us the camera and what it views right now. So I think that's pretty acceptable in this particular state. Let me just delete the blueprint that I've added and then go back in here. We'll just leave it as that the camera is now set up properly. We don't really need to do anything else with that. What we still need to start doing now is adding some parameters. So we've got these variables in here. We've got components, so we can leave that as components. Then we want to add variables for thrust, for rotation, for velocity, all of that jazz that will make our ship fly. And then we can use those into the event graph to basically code them in. But just don't forget to press compile and also save your project every time you reach a milestone, otherwise you might lose your work, which I tend to do a lot in Unreal Engine 5. Okay, now the first variable that we want to add, we're going to press this plus button in here and we're going to type in thrust. And you'll see by default it's now set to Boolean, and also this I over here is not pressed. So you want to press the I, that makes it visible if you have the blueprint in your world somewhere that you want to select it and then just change variables to it. You don't need to do it for this particular blueprint, but just me telling you what the I will do. We'll just expose this particular value into the editor when you have the blueprint in your viewport. Now we will need to change this from Boolean to a float, and then when we press plus again, you'll see that it generates a new variable, and this time is already selected with float because Unreal Engine sort of assumes you want to make a float again, because why not, obviously. And we're going to name this max thrust, and then I'm going to press this again. I'm going to call this gravity threshold, so that's going to be, it's going to decide what our gravity is like. So in this particular case will be minus 980. Right, so the gravity threshold. Then we want a forward velocity, and this particular one we're going to change it from float to vector. We're going to press another plus over here, and we're going to bring in an upwards velocity, which will leave it to vector again. We then need another variable, and we're going to call this rotation torque, just like I did before. And I'm going to change this to a float because we need a float value for our torque. Then we need a side torque power. And then we need another one, a Boolean for our super speed. You can call it super speed, okay? But we're going to change this to a Boolean. Again, we can expose all of these values if we want to. If we don't, it's fine, doesn't really matter. But yeah, these are the values that we'll be using. And with that done, we can compile and go into our event graph. So we don't need these event tick and event action begin overlap. We just need our event begin play. So to start off with this, because we've already compiled, once we press compile, you can actually add some default values to these variables that you've added. So the float will keep it at 0. The max thrust, this is debatable because it's really all about how fast do you want your ship to go, and this is where you put a cap on it. So in this particular case, we'll go, I don't know, 100,000 maybe. I don't know. Is that 100? Yeah, 100,000. Let's just leave it at that for now. Then the gravity threshold. We'll put this as 1,000, but you can put it to different values. And what the gravity threshold sort of does is, if you stop your ship, does your ship start free falling, or things like, or does it keep floating? That's very important as well. The forward velocity, which are vectors, and upwards velocity, we keep that 0, 0, 0. The forward torque, this is in a 1 second. I can't seem to be. Forward torque power. I think I've not added one here. Let me just add a new variable, and we're going to call this forward torque power, and we're going to set that to a float, and maybe I can move it. Yeah, I should be able to move it. And this is just how fast your ship goes upwards, downwards, so that's important as well. The rotation torque pretty much tells us how fast our ship can rotate. And we'll put that to a 40. So that's the velocity of it at 40. The forward torque power, that can be actually rotation. Maybe we'll do like 80. And then the torque power, forward torque power, let me just compile, otherwise the value will not show up in here. Maybe we'll do that at about 60. And then you have side torque power, and you want to put that. So this is how fast the ship moves left to right, like rotates left to right, not on its doesn't rotate like that in the scene, but rather than just looks left or right. So we may want to put that maybe at a, I don't know, 200, so it rotates quite quickly. And then the Boolean we just leave as it is, nothing there to be done. So compile again. Now what you want to do is you want to set the thrust, And we'll use that to, when we press the play button, that's when the thrust is going to be decided. So what we're going to do, if you hold control while clicking and dragging out the thrust, this is this is a get thrust. We don't want to get it. So what I mean by get thrust is, if you would just bring this upwards and bring it over here, you get two options: get thrust or set thrust. We want the set thrust. And the shortcut for that is keeping Alt pressed on the keyboard and then dragging out, and that's set thrust. We're going to link the begin play to our set like that. So this happens when we start. Then we want the max thrust to be added in as well, and this is a set. A get. So that means control. And then we want to put this over into our thrust, but we want to first divide the max thrust by a number. So I'm just going to, you can type in divide, or you can put a divide symbol, and then you get this operator pin. We can link this like that, and then put this into the thrust, and over here the number will put it at 2. But again, you can change these values and then your ship will behave differently. So that's it for the event begin play. We don't need to do anything else with this. What we want to do now is we want to start putting our thrust speed. So this is, we're setting up the thrust, but we are now going to create a nodes that basically decide what that thrust speed is at. And for this, we're going to look for an input. And what we have in here, input, we want the input axis thrust. Now, how am I getting this information? How are you going to see this? What if you don't see it? What if you don't see this input? Well, the input was over into our project settings in our input. It's over here. It's the thrust, right? So if you named this thrust, then you'll see it. If you name this Arganian, let's see if that works. So if you name this Arganian and then we want to search for it, that's the input. That's pretty much the Arganian input, right? That's how it works. So obviously in here, I'm just going to put that back to thrust. So we're basically calling that action in here, right? And we're going to use that. And then we're going to link our thrust variables to it. Okay. So I'm going to type in thrust, and that's then axis event. That's the one that I want. Let me just bring it somewhere over here. You can sort of get these nodes to look nicely after. We then need to bring a sequence. So just type in sequence, and then we have a then and then. So once this sequence 0 happens, then sequence 1. So we want that in there. We also want a nearly equal float, and this is just going to correct our error for our thrust, and we will link this over into the A value, leave the B to where it is, but the error tolerance will put it to 0.1, so not 0.1. I always get that wrong. Okay, now we also want to get a forward vector of our ship, so we can pretty much declare the thrust speed is what's giving us the forward velocity. So we've got the forward velocity as a vector. Want to bring that in as a set like that. So Alt, drag it in. We then want to bring in a multiply. So the multiply is either multiply on your keyboard, or you can type in multiply. And you get this node, and the pin connects over into our forward velocity. You can see now that the pin has transformed into vector type information. So for that, we want to bring the thrust and link it over in here. So we've now changed this from a vector to a float. In Unreal Engine, I think this is an Unreal Engine 5 sort of feature. These calculations, these symbols, mathematical symbols, now automatically change from vectors to floats and so on, if it's possible, without you having to get a specific one, float one or a Boolean one or whatever. Okay, and now we want to get the forward vector. So you can see in here, get forward vector, and we want to get the get forward vector from the ship. Okay, and this automatically brings our target, which is the ship, which is quite nice. And then we link that over in here. And for the set node itself, we need to bring our sequence one, our sequence, then one, and link it over here, and that's pretty much done. Now we need a branch. So we're going to branch out, guys. We're going to branch out. So this connects over into this branch. And then I'm going to Control D to duplicate this branch, and I'm going to connect the false option over into this branch. I don't really need to do this yet, but I am going to do it just because we're setting up the super speed as well for our ship. And if I don't have two branches here, then we won't be able to do it. Basically, this branch will take us to our super speed, sort of variant of the same nodes, and you'll see what I mean in a second. Now, what we want to do is bring in a not sort of node as well, but this is not the right one. I'm trying to get a not boolean. Okay, so this is the one that you want to get. Connect the return value over into here, and then this over into the condition of this branch. Okay, so we're going to do that, and now we want to put the set thrust over here at the end. Where's my thrust? Over here. Alt, drag it, and then connect this like that. Okay, and now what we want to do is we need to connect our value from here. We need a plus operator, and we're going to link this into the plus operator, although it doesn't seem to be allowing me to do that. Let me just give me 1 second. First put in a divide, and I'm pretty sure you can connect these. Oh yeah, it allows you to connect it over here, but nothing seems to be, you can't really input a lot, and that's because we haven't yet told Unreal what we want to do with these symbols. So we're going to connect this into the alpha, which then, let me just break this link and just connect it again. You can see now they're okay, and now they know it's a float, and now I can link it, you see. Otherwise, it won't work, honestly. Just this is how you have to do it. You have to tell Unreal Engine what you're trying to do before you can do it. But I'm not going to link it in that node. I like to keep things flowing the right way. So I'm going to put that to number 1, and I'm going to put this to number 2. The math behind all of this, if I go like why I'm doing what I'm doing, I think I'm going to probably be lost in trying to explain it, to be honest. But let me just put the thrust in and connect that, and hopefully I'll be able to paint a better picture when I finish off the nodes. And this lerp, we want to bring it into finterp2. So it says here what it does. Try to reach the target based on distance from current position, giving a nice smooth feeling when tracking a position. So that's what this node does. We can connect this over into our thrust, and this lerp, we're connected to our target. And then we need to bring the thrust again, put this into our current. The delta time, we need a node get world delta seconds, and we can connect that over in the delta time. And in the interpolate speed, this is 0.5. Now, here's the thing about this 0.5. This is how fast your speed builds up. What I mean by this is, if you put that at 1, and you can go from 0 to 10 in terms of speed, then you're gaining speed per second, per frame, sorry. You're getting 1 speed. So you're going from 0 to 10 in 10 frames. If you put that at 0.5, then it's obviously half of that. This decides how fast you're going to be gaining speed, and how fast you're going to decrease your speed. Okay, so this is a nice sort of value to work with, because it allows you to do various things in terms of your ship. Does it move very fast? Does it build up its speed incredibly fast or very slow? It could build its speed very slow, and then it can decrease it very slow. So that's something to consider. Okay, now this is pretty much done from this point. Now, if I just as a test, let's just try it out, right? If I connect this then from here to over here, so I'm going to take this branch out for a second and just compile. This should work in theory, at least a little bit. So let me just take this blueprint away. This is our BP ship. So in the BP game mode, as in here, or actually no, you know what, I'm just going to put it into our project settings. So if I go into maps and modes over here, if I then bring the BP ship into the default pawn class, I should be able to, can I drop it? Yeah, so I dropped it in there. Now within the scene itself, by the way, I do have a player start. So the player start is over here. You can drop one wherever you want, preferably closer to the world origin so you don't really get any problems. But if I press play now, I should start from here. Okay, so I did, although this is a bit tricky because it's loaded the other game mode. I'm not really sure why. Let me just see what's going on, because I'm trying to load my, oh, there we go. See, the world settings hasn't been changed. So I need to go in here, BP game ship, which is BP ship. And if I press play now, okay, so I've got this, but nothing is happening, right? We don't even know if we're moving. I can tell you for certain that we are moving, and we could go in here. Maybe put the interpolate speed to 5, and let's see if that makes any difference. So press play. Let's see. Am I moving? No, not really. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter. But this is pretty much our ship now spawning with these settings. I'm not yet moving, unfortunately. We've got to obviously we've got to resolve that somehow. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I want to create a supersonic sort of speed. This is why I've got this branch over here. Okay. And in order for us to do this, what we're going to do, we're going to copy. So we need to copy everything apart from this branch over here. So that is, and any not this, we don't need the sequence, and we just need these points with these and this set. Okay, this is what we need. So I'm just gonna press Control D to duplicate them and then bring them up here. Now we want to then bring this axis over and connect it just like that, and then this one over into the A value, just like we did before. So it needs to look the same. The not value needs to connect over into this condition over here, and then this branch, we need it to go like that. Okay, and then the true value of this branch goes into this set value. So what we're essentially saying here is, if I, so I'll show you in just one second. Wait, this condition, I need another branch. So I need another branch over here. Yeah, I need another branch over here. This condition links over into this branch, okay, just like that. This branch doesn't connect over there, but instead it connects over here, and then this branch connects into our set. Yeah, just like that. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so the reason why I've done that, let me just bring this branch up here so it's out of the way. The reason why I've done that is because we needed a condition to tell our system why is it switching to this version instead of running this version. And that's where we're bringing in an input mouse action. And in my case, it was supersonic. If you look in the project settings over into our input, that's what I've written, supersonic. So that's why it's called supersonic. And what I'm saying is if the button is pressed or released, two different things can happen. So then I can bring my super speed, set it, and then I can duplicate it. Okay, so if it's pressed, set to on, okay, so this is true. So then I'm putting it over into this condition. So what I'm saying is if I press it, it's true, and then it goes to the condition, which then branches out into the true value, which is then loads up this information. If it's released, then it's false and nothing happens. Meaning, rather than this going over into the true version, it just continues on with its false like nothing really happened. As in, if it's false, it just goes over into this branch. Okay, And that's pretty much our setup for the supersonic speed, which I can then bring upwards like that. Hopefully it will look right. Hopefully you understand, what's been done here. But what's the difference between the two, you may ask? Well, the difference can then be pretty much changed over here. So I can put a 0.1 value, meaning that I'm gonna get very high speeds. Now, again, let me just press play here. Does anything happen? It doesn't happen yet because we haven't yet given a forward velocity, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So we've set the forward velocity here, and that's fine, but we need an extra layer, which is the velocity and rotation point. So this is on its own. This exists on its own, and now you need to set the next sort of stage of it. Now for the velocity and rotation, I am going to take our event tick. So I'm using this now. First thing we want to do is bring in a sequence, which we're probably going to use this again. So we want a sequence that then branches out. So let me just take this then value, put a branch. And again, for the branch, we want with this to set our upwards velocity. So bring in our upwards velocity. If it's true, we put it over here. And now we obviously got to add some things in there and also a condition. And we're going to bring a then. We're going to bring from this then option, we're going to bring in a set physics linear velocity. And that's for our ship. Then we want to get our forward velocity and our upwards velocity. And we want to add these together. So the plus sign, connect them both, and connect them into our new value over here. You leave this to add to current, none of this, you don't touch any of this stuff, and you just leave it there. You don't do anything with it, just set the physics linear velocity the way you see it. Now we can bring our forward velocity in here and our gravity threshold as well. We then want to take the vector length of our forward velocity, which you can see then it returns the value as a float. So we're converting that into a float. And then we want to put in a less than symbol. Wait. It's called a less. It's not less than, it's just a less. Okay. And we can connect that over there and the gravity threshold. And then this is the condition that we're going to put in our branch. Okay. Hopefully I can bring these a bit like that, just create some more space. Now we want to take these nodes again, these three, duplicate them, bring them over down here, and we want to bring a minus like that. Oh, let me just connect them together. Okay, and this is where we need another lerp, and this connects into the alpha of the lerp. Let's just leave this like this because we still need to add some more nodes down here. So if it's false, if the branch is false, so the condition is false, we want, actually let me just bring it, we want to set the upwards velocity like that. And we want to bring in a v interpolate to, which says in here tries to reach target based on distance from current position, giving a noise smooth feeling when tracking a position. So that's what we're getting there. And we need our upwards velocity, not a set, we need to get it. Upwards velocity, connect that into our current. And we need to get a get world delta seconds, and that always connects into our delta time. We're basically telling the system about the, to take the FPS as interpolate speed to 20. Okay, And now we've got this lerp in here, and what we've got, we need to connect into, one problem that we're going to have in here basically is if you look at the ship, so just in the viewport, the ship itself, you can see that this is the X, Y, and Z axis, and this is the rotation of the ship. Now, what happens is, if your ship turns to its side, you can see that its axes have turned as well, and that's how the blueprint will read that. What we want to make sure here is we want the up always to point up and down always to point down, sort of thing. So we want the axes to always be the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to take an unrotate vector, okay, and we're going to put that somewhere maybe over here. Let me just bring this set over like that. And we need to link in here an A and B. So for A, we're going to type in get up vector, but we want to get the up vector for our ship. Yeah. And then over into the B, we want to get world rotation, again for our ship. Yeah. So we've got the unrotate and all that, and this lerp, which we need to put the gravity of this at minus 980, which is the gravity sort of information from Unreal. This is a default value. And we want to then add in a multiply node in here, bring the value of the lerp and the value of the unrotate vector, like that, and then that connects into our upward velocity. And this should be it. Let me just press compile. We have no errors, and let me just press play again, see what happens now. Okay. So that's fine. I'm still not seeing any movement. So let me just see what's going on here. And now we want to do our move up sort of parts. So I'm gonna type in move up. That's another axis that we've made if you've made them in the input like I've typed them in. And we want to add torque in degrees. You can see it automatically loads in the ship, which is nice. Now we want to bring the right vector for our ship. Then what we want to do is we've got the forward torque power, so we can get that. We then want to put a multiply node in here and connect these two values like that. And then we want to bring in a multiply node and multiply between our forward torque power and our get right vector. And I'll just put that over into the torque. Make sure you got accelerate change boolean turned on. Press compile. Let's see if anything has changed. Still no change. Gotta work out what's happening here. I do get these errors though, where it says physics enable if you'd like to add torque. So Millennium Falcon. See, this is the problem. Why? Oh, right. Okay. So it says Millennium Falcon has to have simulate physics enable if you like to add torque. Oh, yes, that's right. That's what I was forgetting. I actually have not added any. I haven't added yet the gravity to this. So this is a part that I've sort of skipped over, unfortunately. But definitely something that we need to find in here. The options for gravity. And make sure that they're actually set up as well. So when you click the ship itself, you've got these options here on the side at the physics tab. So you've got simulate physics, you've got to put that on. And then you've got an angular damping, you want to put that over to 1. We want to disable gravity. And then leave this the collision, physics actor, that's fine. And I think that should be it. So let me just compile again. And now if I press play, okay, now the ship is moving. See, I forgot about the simulate physics part. But as you can see, we're only moving forwards, upwards, and downwards because that's the only thing that we've set up so far. I can do the shift thing. Shift just increases speed, which is great. But I can't, I mean, the W and S work, but I can't do anything else other than just go forward or backwards. So let's then have a look at doing the rotation and move left and right. So in order to do that, this is quite simple, because we can get all of these nodes that we've got here. Control D, bring them down. We don't need the right vector. We instead need the get up vector, and we put that in. We connect that into this multiply. But then over here we need another input, which is move. Oh, not get move right. I wanted to move right, and that was the axis input that I needed. So that goes over in there, and this value goes over into here. Like that. Then compile, and now I can duplicate all of these, bring them down here. Again, I'm gonna delete the get up vector, and instead I'm gonna put the forward. So get forward vector, and same thing, this connects over here. And then in here we're gonna bring in our roll axis. There we go. Connect that and connect it over here. And now press compile. And if we press play, ship is moving. So this is left, right. You can see how fast that is because that's just the torque. Now I don't really, my camera isn't moving very nicely. So what I need to do is go back into here. Again, if you want your rotation to be faster, so you can go to maybe, well, actually slower, go to 50. Then the forward torque power, maybe put that to 40. So you may want to sort of change some of these things to make it so that it moves smoother. But then you can select your spring arm over here as well. And then you can enable camera lag rotation, maybe camera lag speed. You're just gonna have to look at these settings and choose what you want, but they definitely make a difference for sure. Let me just show you what happens when you set up camera lag. If I press play right now, moving quite nicely, you know, but then if I start to accelerate, this goes further away because of how the camera lag was set up. But if I press shift and W, it's going, baby. This is like madness. You can see how I mean, this is quite creative, actually. You can do some really interesting stuff with this camera lag, but we obviously don't want that. So what we do want instead is we're just gonna have to look at the camera lag speed and all these options. Maybe let me just try. I can't remember now if I need to change this to a lower value or to a let me just try. You've got a max distance, so you probably can limit that maybe to a 200. Let's just try 5 and 5 and compile, press play, and yeah, okay, I think it's a bit too tight now. So you've just really got to play around with these settings. Maybe your max camera is 500. So let me just try. No, it's still very tight. So I think if we leave it at 200, we probably need to look at, I mean, this was 10 before, wasn't it? So let's just see what happens. Yeah, I think this is all right. You just need to, what you need to do now is just push the camera further. So you'd select your spring arm, and then up here maybe go to a 7,000 instead of 5,000. And then when you press play, yeah, this is further away, so that's fine. Okay, so that pretty much concludes setting up the ship. Some tips, and this is for a future video, but you could link Niagara spawn particles. For example, if you have an engine like jet or whatever coming out of the back, you could probably link it over, you'd link it over here so that the spawn rate of those particles is based on this, or the luminosity or whatever based on this set thrust here and here. So I'm going to show you guys that in a future video, but right now let's just put a very basic sort of HUD together just so you can get some information on your screen of what's happening when you accelerate or decelerate in your scene. And the first thing we want to do is right click and create a new blueprint, and we want to type in here widget, and you're going to see this sort of visual. Okay, let me just try widget HUD. Yeah, there we go. So we want to bring in a widget HUD, but we're going to call this HUD ship maybe. If you double click it, this will open a panel, and you can see this is our, wait 1 second. Why is this opening? It's a very interesting thing. We've got a widget HUD over here, but this is already loaded up some information. I'm not really sure why that would be the case. Let me just try and double click it again. I think we've got a bit of a problem here. So double clicking it, yeah, very strange. So I've got nothing in my graph, but I've got something in my designer. I don't know why it would show up like this way. Anyway, so what we want to do first is we want to add where is it now? So I need, honestly, this is really, I'm trying to get a canvas panel, right? So there we go. Okay, right. So now that's reset. So we've got a canvas panel in here, and then we want to bring another one. And this is our screen. This canvas pretty much envelops our entire screen. And this is the other one that I've just put at the bottom. Maybe make it a bit, I don't know, bigger like that. And then you can add a text inside, and you can make this smaller. So, but you've also got, I mean, if you're gonna make it smaller, you've got to make sure that the text size. You got a text, trying to find the text size in here. You got the font, so we're going to put that to maybe a 12 or something, maybe, I don't know, 11. And then whatever the text will be, let's call this speed, for example. So that will change the text to speed. Then we want to duplicate maybe this node, and you can drag it maybe over here. And let's just leave it as well. Actually, we can delete anything that's written in there. We don't need any sort of text for that. And then over down here, we're gonna need a progress bar. So I'm going to try and, you know, just add a bit of a progress bar. We need to then tell it how much this sort of information, you know, how to link the progress bar to the number over here, for example. And in order to do that, we've got what is called a binding. So if we press that button and we say create binding, this creates a new binding over into here. If you press a designer, it will take you back to where you were setting up the HUD. But if you go into graph, this will show you the bindings. So you got get text too. Okay, and in order for us to sort out the text, we've got the return node over here. What we want to do is we want to bring a cast to BP, and that's the one, the ship one, that's the one that we're using. So we want to bring that in. We want the get text to connect into it like that. And then obviously the cast goes into the return nodes, just like that. We then want to get player pawn. And we'll connect this over into our object, like so. This we want to bring the thrust from the blue. So that's the information that is gonna read the thrust of the ship. That's the information that is going to read and display as a text. And then we want to bring in a safe divide over in here, and we want to do text to text float. So we're gonna put that in there, and then like that. And then over in here, we want to bring in a dot. No, not a dot, sorry. Oh, yeah, you just want to do that actually. Want to connect it that way, and this should work just fine. It's the first train to the safe divide. And then the number in here, we can add maybe a 10,000. This is going to be the limit of what it can display. So let's just leave it at 10,000 for now. And then press compile. We're getting an error. The widget and parent class have a widget hierarchy. Sorry, where is that coming from specifically? You know what? What if I do bring a dot here? I'm pretty sure I had to trick it somehow, so... No, that won't work. No. It should actually work, I don't really understand. So internal compiler tries to cast a property text block in scope, but another object. Oh, already exists there. Oh, right. Okay. So it's basically interfering with the other. it's interfering with the other widget. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, let me just close this off. Let me just bring the other one up. So what we're trying to do, just ignore this point and ignore this point. These don't matter. So basically, what you're trying to do for the get text, you're trying to do this. That's what you're trying to get. Okay. So if I compile it, this should work without these points. Now, from what I'm seeing, you could connect this directly like that. It's not really a problem, okay? So you've got all of these connected this way. And then for the percentage, you'd go back into your, over here, right? You select the progress bar and you press over here in the button, create a binding, okay? You can change the color of this. If you want a different color, you can do it to whatever you want. But that's about it really. And then once you create a new binding, this will take you to this page where you've got the percent. Now again, don't worry about any of these things. These are just me testing around with a different kind of spaceship. But for the progress bar, this is what you want to do. This is the value that it can go up to. So as long as this value is the same. In this particular case, it's either you can put a 1 or a 2 or whatever, but this value has to come in line with your max thrust from here. So just experiment with the numbers. Depending on what numbers you put in here, you will have to go into your widget HUD and then change this value and this value over here so that it then matches up with your progress bar. So the progress bar is not always filled. There's an actual build up, and then the actual number of speed matches what you are showing on screen. And then once you do that, you just set up in the game modes, or in the, well, in my case it was in the world settings. Sorry about that. So it was right here in the world settings. What you do, you'd set up the HUD to ship HUD or whichever one you want, but you can't set it up in here unless you first gone into the project settings. So in maps and modes, so in here you'd have to, well, you won't be able to see that HUD unless you've added the blueprint that you've created. So in this particular case, this BP ship and BP game mode, unless it's linked to the widget. And unfortunately, the widget that I've just created, the one that I've just created, doesn't work there because it overlaps with the other one. Won't look for it? It's looking for the Millennium Falcon. So if you were casting this, so let me just try this out. If I would be casting this to BP ship instead, like that. So this object, do this. And let me just copy it over here as well. So I'm just quickly trying to show you what would happen. Oh yeah, obviously I would literally have to get its thrust. Make sure that's in there. And over here as well, I've got to make sure that I'm getting the thrust from the new blueprint, otherwise it won't work. Compile, okay, And now if we look into game mode, I can actually select... well, I still can't. That's strange. Let me just go into project settings. I should be able to select it now. So, BP ship. Yeah, I'm not really sure why it won't allow me to select it unless I actually have to open the game ship. Yeah, very, very strange that it wouldn't allow me to select it. I'm sure this would work. I'm just not particularly sure why not. Man, honestly, I am stuck between so many different things now. So many different blueprints and blueprint classes. This was the ship HUD that I was trying to open. It's compiled. Oh yeah, no, this is right. Okay, so this is the ship HUD. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this is fine. Because if I press play now... yeah, I can play... Yeah, so you see it's working. It's loading that one. So it's loading the right one. This is the blueprint that we just created earlier. So it's loading the right one. I was just obviously having so many different naming conventions now. But yeah, you can see that this is displaying the information, and you can see how fast I'm building that speed up because in the actual blueprint for the ship, so in here we have the interpolate speed at 5. So we can put that, for example, to 1. And we can put this to 0.2. And then if we compile, press play again, you can see that I'm barely building up speed now. You can see that, yeah? I'm not building speed, not even close. And if you don't press shift and you press W instead, your speed will decelerate to reach 10 because the system is trying to put you back at the velocity of 10. So yeah, pretty much that's it. That sort of concludes our tutorial. As I said, if you're a bit unsure about the HUD sort of scenario thing, just ask a question, go on the Discord channel, ask a question in case it doesn't work for you, but it should in theory work just fine. I'm just getting an error because I've got an overlap. I'll have to have a look into that to see why there would be an error. Why can't I have multiple sort of HUDs? But I'll have a look as to how to fix that problem. In the meantime, I think pretty much the tutorial is done. This shows you how to set up your scene through how it's flying spaceship. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Leave some feedback. Consider buying one of my projects. Buy me a coffee if you would want to support me and you want to get some, something like this that's already working. It's got the ship, by the way, inside of it, so you can fly the ship and all that. So you can just pretty much get the project and you're ready to go. But I'll see you guys in the next one when I'll release another tutorial. I'm not really sure what the topic is yet. I'm still debating what I'm going to select, but clearly space related. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe and travel with the speed of light. Or don't.